The remote Viridian sector glittered with the light of 7 ancient suns, once a peaceful corner of the galaxy where the Dai Alliance had thrived for centuries. Now the skies above their worlds burned with the engines of Kang warships. What had begun as border disputes had evolved into systematic extermination as the Kang Empire expanded its reach across the stars. On Dai Prime, the gleaming spires of the capital city Hasum stood partially crumbled, its azure crystal towers reflecting the fires that raged through the lower districts. Elder Han stood at the panoramic window of the last sanctuary, the final defensive bunker buried beneath the planet's largest mountain. His weathered face, marked with the traditional blue lines of Dai leadership, showed the weight of a losing war. "The shields on Day Tertius have fallen," reported Commander Su, her voice steady despite the news she delivered. "Our colony there has gone silent." Elder Han nodded slowly. 3 of their 5 worlds had already fallen. The Kang assault had been relentless, their black spike-covered battle cruisers dropping planet-cracker bombs that split the earth and boiled the seas. The Dai, with their focus on art, science, and peaceful trade, had never built the kind of military that could withstand such an enemy. "The emergency beacon?" Han asked. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," Su confirmed. But no response from any council worlds. The Galactic Council, that grand assembly of spacefaring species, had proven itself useless when faced with actual crisis. The Kang had bought their silence with threats or treasure. No help would come from those corners. "Prepare the final transmission," Han ordered, moving toward the communication array at the center of the room. The technology hummed to life, its ancient crystals glowing with stored energy, a remnant from the days when the Dai had been among the most advanced civilizations in the quadrant. Now they would use their last power reserves to send a message into the empty darkness, toward coordinates that might contain nothing but void. "So are you certain, Elder?" Su questioned. "The humans, they're just stories, old legends from before the Great Silence." Han's fingers traced the star charts, landing on a small, unremarkable yellow sun at the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm. "Every legend begins somewhere, Commander, and the archives are clear. Before they vanished from galactic contact, the humans were different." The communication array pulsed as Han recorded his message, a simple plea for aid, explaining their situation, the coordinates of their dying worlds, the brutality of the Kang assault. He spoke of the millions of Dai civilians already lost, of the ancient knowledge that would die with them, of the beauty that would be extinguished forever. As the message launched into the depths of space, traveling faster than light through ancient pathways, a Kang scout ship intercepted its signature. Aboard the Kang flagship Eternal Dominion, Admiral Tay reviewed the intercepted transmission with amusement. His scaled face, covered in battle scars from a dozen conquered worlds, split into what passed for a smile among his kind. "They call for humans?" he laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "The weak always seek myths when reality becomes too harsh." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Jin, appeared less certain. "The archives do mention human warriors, Admiral, before they disappeared." "Fairy tales," Tay dismissed with a wave of his clawed hand. "Humans were primitive creatures who barely managed interstellar travel before retreating back to their homeworld. If they still exist, they're huddled around their dim sun fighting over scraps of resources." On the massive viewscreen, the Kang fleet assembled for the final assault on Dai Prime. 50 dreadnoughts, each capable of reducing a continent to ash, surrounded by hundreds of smaller craft. The Dai defenses had been reduced to a handful of orbital platforms and a planetary shield that flickered weakly on the verge of collapse. "Begin the attack sequence," Admiral Tay ordered. "I want this finished by day's end." The Kang fleet moved into formation, their weapons charging with ominous red light. On the surface below, the remaining Dai population huddled in underground shelters, praying to ancient gods or simply holding loved ones close as the end approached. At the edge of the system, a sensor operator aboard a Kang patrol vessel noticed something unusual: energy fluctuations in the seemingly empty space near the system's outer boundary. "Probably radiation from the nebula," his supervisor noted without concern. The fluctuations grew stronger. The sensor operator adjusted his equipment, trying to get a clearer reading. "Sir, These patterns seem artificial. They're organized, somehow. Before the supervisor could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. What had been empty void suddenly blazed with light as a massive portal of swirling blue energy formed. The patrol vessel's sensors went wild, unable to process what they were detecting. Through this impossible tear in reality came ships, hundreds of them, then thousands. They emerged in perfect formation, moving with synchronized precision that spoke of extensive drill and discipline. Unlike the bulky, aggressive designs of Kang vessels or the elegant artistic shapes of day craft, these newcomers were sleek, functional, and clearly built for war. Their hulls bore the scars of previous battles, patched and repaired, but wearing these marks with pride. And on each ship, visible even at this distance, was an unmistakable insignia. A blue and green sphere, wrapped in protective laurels, the Me. Ancient symbol of Earth, Admiral Tay was midway through his attack orders when the report reached him. He dismissed it initially as sensor malfunction or cowardice, but when the visual feeds confirmed what the sensors had detected, even his battle-hardened composure cracked. "Impossible," he whispered, as the screens filled with the approaching armada. The human vessels moved faster than any ships the Kang had encountered, accelerating to combat speed without the usual build-up required by conventional engines. They formed a protective sphere around the remaining day worlds, with a precision that spoke of countless hours of practice. As the human fleet approached, a transmission cut through all Kang communication channels. The face that appeared on screen was that of Fleet Admiral Yoon, her expression stern but composed, her uniform bearing decorations that told of victories in conflicts the galaxy had never witnessed. "This is Admiral Yoon of the United Earth Defense Force," she stated simply. "You are attacking worlds under human protection. Withdraw immediately." The Kang Empire had conquered 17 species. They did not retreat. Admiral Tay's response was to launch fighters toward the human fleet, a probing attack to test their defenses. None of the fighters returned. The UES Thermopylae hung in space like a predatory fish, its angular hull gleaming dully in the light of day prime sun. Unlike the ornate ships of the local civilizations, the human vessel was built with ruthless efficiency, every curve and plane serving a tactical purpose. Along its flanks, weapon ports remained closed but ready, while its engines emitted a soft blue glow that somehow seemed more threatening than the harsh red burn of Kang warships. On the bridge, Admiral Park stood with hands clasped behind her, back, studying the tactical display with calm, measured focus. The Admiral's weathered face showed little emotion, but her eyes, sharp and calculating, missed nothing as they tracked the movements of the Kang fleet. "They're regrouping after losing their fighter squadron," reported Lieutenant Gill from the sensor station. "Appears they're reassessing their approach." Park nodded slightly. They would. The Kang military doctrine prizes adaptation. It's what's made them effective conquerors. She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Dai leadership. Priority signal, maximum encryption." Within moments, the stunned face of Elder Han appeared on the main view screen. The Dai leader's eyes were wide with disbelief, the traditional blue markings on his face standing out starkly against his pallid skin. "This is not possible," Han whispered. "Humans are legends, stories from the ancient archives." Admiral Park allowed herself a small smile. "I assure you, Elder Han, we are quite real. The United Earth Defense Force has come in response to your distress call." "But how? Where have you been?" "The archives say humans vanished from galactic affairs over 3 centuries ago." The Admiral's expression grew more serious. "A strategic withdrawal, Elder Han. Humanity faced a choice after our first encounters with the wider galactic community. We could join as we were, vulnerable, divided, technologically outmatched, or we could step back, unite and prepare." The tactical display flickered as more information came in. The Kang fleet was repositioning, bringing their heavier vessels to the front. "We've been watching," Park continued. "Learning, building. The galaxy's communications aren't as secure as most species believe." Her eyes hardened slightly. "We've seen what happens to peaceful civilizations in this part of space. The Kang aren't the first expansionist empire, nor will they be the last." Elder Han seemed to struggle with this information. "You've been monitoring our suffering. and did nothing until now. We couldn't reveal ourselves until we were ready, Park replied, her voice steady but not without compassion. A premature intervention would have meant our destruction alongside yours. Humanity doesn't believe in losing wars, Elder Han. Before the day leader could respond, Lieutenant Gill called out, Admiral, the Kang fleet is launching a full assault wave, multiple cruiser-class vessels on attack vectors. So be it, Park said calmly. Elder Han, I suggest you and your people take shelter. We'll continue this conversation after we've dealt with your Kang problem. The Kang attack came like a thunderstorm, dozens of heavily armed cruisers accelerating toward the human fleet, their weapon systems glowing hot as they prepared to fire. Admiral Tay, confident in his numerical advantage, had decided to overwhelm these newcomers with sheer firepower. On the Kang command ship, Tay watched with satisfaction. These humans have overplayed their hand. One successful ambush against our fighters means nothing. Now they face the full might of a battle-tested armada. The first volley from the Kang fleet lit up space, plasma torpedoes and energy beams lancing across the void toward the human vessels. Tay expected to see ships exploding, shields failing, the typical carnage of superior firepower meeting inferior defenses. Instead, he watched in disbelief as the human vessel's shields absorbed the attack without visible strain. The energy weapons splashed against invisible barriers, dispersing harmlessly, while torpedoes detonated well short of their targets as if hitting solid walls. Aboard the Thermopylae, the bridge remained calm despite the furious assault. The ship trembled slightly under the impact of multiple weapon strikes, but the shield status remained firmly in the green. Their weapon technology is exactly as our intelligence suggested, Park noted. Powerful, but predictable. Transmit tactical. Pattern Epsilon to all ships. Defensive posture only for now. The human fleet moved with unnatural coordination, ships shifting positions in perfect synchronization to distribute the incoming fire across their strongest shield sections. It was like watching a single organism with hundreds of parts, each knowing exactly where to be at every moment. After the initial barrage failed to produce results, Admiral Tay changed tactics. Target their flagship. Concentrate all fire on that vessel, every ship in range. The Kang vessels redirected their attack, focusing overwhelming firepower on the Thermopylae. The human flagship's shields began to glow visibly under the strain, a shimmering blue barrier becoming visible as it dispersed the massive energy input. Admiral Park stood unfazed as her ship shuddered around her. They're predictable. Open a direct channel to the Kang command vessel. When the connection established, Park stared directly at the scaled face of Admiral Tay. This is your only warning. Withdraw your forces from day space immediately or face the consequences. Tay's face contorted in what might have been amusement. You bluff well, human. Your shields may be impressive, but you are still outnumbered. And I have other targets. He turned to issue new orders. Redirect half our forces to the day civilian centers. Let's see how these humans respond when innocents burn. The transmission cut off. Park's expression hardened to granite. They made their choice. Combat Protocol Omega authorized. She turned to her weapons officer. Lieutenant 1, you may fire when ready. Precision targeting only, minimum collateral damage. What happened next would be recorded in Kang military archives as the 7-minute massacre. The human vessels suddenly accelerated to speeds the Kang tracking systems could barely follow. From concealed weapon ports came not energy beams or torpedoes, but strange projectiles that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. These weapons bypassed shields, designed to stop energy attacks, materializing directly inside Kang vessels at critical systems. Engines died, weapon systems went offline, communication arrays fell silent. A third of the Kang fleet was disabled in the first 2 minutes, floating helpless in space, with crews still alive but unable to fight or flee. As the Kang vessels attempting to reach the Dai civilian centers accelerated, they found human ships already waiting in their path, having somehow predicted their course and arrived first. These vessels deployed what appeared to be gravity weapons, creating localized distortions that pulled the Kang ships off course, trapping them in spatial eddies they couldn't escape. Admiral Tay watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically neutralized without a single ship being destroyed. "What manner of technology is this?" he demanded of his science officer, who could only shake his head in bewilderment. 7 minutes after the human counterattack began, the Kang fleet was effectively neutralized, not destroyed but rendered completely combat ineffective. The disabled vessels floated in eerie silence, their crews watching through viewports as human shuttles approached, attaching strange devices to their hulls. Admiral Park's voice came through on all Kang communication systems. "Your vessels have been fitted with transponders. Any aggressive action will trigger an immediate response. You are being permitted to withdraw with your lives and your ships. I suggest you take this opportunity to inform your leadership of what happened here today." She paused, then added with steel in her voice, "The Dai Alliance is now under human protection. Remember that before you consider returning." On day prime, the citizens emerged from their shelters to see the impossible. Kang warships in full retreat, their fearsome weapons silent, escorted to the system's edge by the sleek vessels of their mysterious saviors, and in orbit above their world more human ships arrived through the swirling blue portals, some clearly designed not for war, but for aid and reconstruction. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, not as supplicants or equals, but as protectors who had been watching from the shadows all along. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council blazed with light and noise as representatives from 67 spacefaring civilizations argued over humanity's unexpected return. The massive circular room, with its soaring crystal dome and floating delegate platforms, hadn't seen such chaos in generations. The chamber itself, built into a massive space station at the symbolic center of galactic civilization, seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the debate. Ambassador Lee stood calmly at the center of the storm. Unlike the ornate robes or exoskeletons worn by other delegates, her simple blue uniform with Earth's emblem projected understated confidence. She waited patiently as accusations flew across the chamber in dozens of languages, all translated through the neural links each delegate wore. "Order! We will have order!" bellowed High Counselor Vox, his massive tentacled form pulsing with bioluminescent anger. As head of the Council for the past 30 cycles, the ancient Morven had overseen countless debates, but nothing had prepared him for today's crisis. The chamber gradually quieted. Vox's tentacles settled into a more neutral pattern as he addressed the human. "Ambassador Lee, your species has violated the most fundamental principle of galactic law, non-interference in sovereign conflicts." Lee's expression remained impassive. An interesting principle to invoke given the Council's history of selective enforcement. A rumble of discontent spread through the chamber. The Zidari representative, a crystalline being who refracted light in patterns expressing emotion, flashed angry red. "Humanity abandoned the galactic community centuries ago. You have no standing to criticize our governance." "We didn't abandon anything," Lee replied. "We made a strategic withdrawal to observe and prepare." "Prepare for what?" demanded the Kang. Representative Subcommander Jin, who had been hastily dispatched after news of the fleet's defeat reached the Empire. Lee turned slowly to face him. "For exactly what happened in the Viridian sector. For the moment when we would need to step in because this council failed in its primary duty, protecting civilizations from genocide." She gestured, and holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing historical footage that made many delegates shift uncomfortably. The Terrell massacres, the extinction of the Brontari, the Vega system cleansing. In each case, appeals to the Council had been met with debate, sanctions, and ultimately inaction, while millions died. 17 times in the past century, this Council has allowed emerging civilizations to be conquered or exterminated, Lee continued, usually by the same few expansionist powers who somehow retain their council seats despite these violations. The Kang representative's scales darkened with rage. "You dare accuse the Empire—" "I dare speak the truth," Lee interrupted. "Humanity left the galactic stage because we recognized we were not yet ready to protect ourselves in this environment. But we never stopped watching. We placed observer drones throughout council space. We intercepted communications. We documented atrocities." The Tilani delegate, representing one of the oldest democratic powers, leaned forward. "If these accusations are true, why reveal yourselves now? Why the die?" Li's expression softened slightly. "Because there comes a point when observation without action becomes complicity. The Dei are the 18th species to face extinction, while this council debated procedural matters. We decided that 18 was enough." High Councillor Vox's tentacles twisted in what those familiar with Morvan body language recognized as discomfort. "Regardless of your justifications, humanity has no authority to enforce its own interpretation of galactic law. The Kang Empire has filed a formal complaint demanding reparations and your immediate withdrawal from Viridian space." Li smiled for the first time, a small, cold expression. "That won't be happening. As of today, humanity is implementing what we call the doctrine of intervention. Any civilization facing existential threat may request Earth's protection. We will respond with appropriate force." The chamber erupted again. Accusations of warmongering and imperialism echoed from multiple delegates. The Kang representative stormed out, his formal protests lost in the general uproar. When order was finally restored, the Praxi delegate, a species known for their neutrality, raised a practical question. "And how does humanity propose to enforce this doctrine?" The Kang Empire controls the largest military force in 3 sectors. They have conquered 17 worlds. Your intervention in one system, impressive as it was, hardly prepares you for what will come. "We are well aware of what comes next," Li replied. "The Kang are already mobilizing their main battle fleets. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing to deploy weapons prohibited under Section 7 of the Galactic Accord." This revelation brought a new tension to the chamber. Section 7 weapons, planet killers, star destabilizers, and worse, had been banned after nearly destroying the galaxy in the ancient Scourge Wars. "That's a serious accusation," Vox said. "Do you have proof?" "We do," Li confirmed, "and we've already taken countermeasures." Deep in human space, aboard the massive space station serving as Earth's forward command center, Admiral Park reviewed the final preparations for Operation Thunderclap. The holographic display showed hundreds of human vessels organized into specialized strike teams, each with designated targets throughout Kang territory. "Team Alpha's infiltration units are in position near the Kang homeworld," reported Commander Ryu, her cybernetically enhanced eyes glowing faintly as she processed multiple data streams. "Beta and Gamma teams have successfully placed phase disruptors at the primary shipyards." Park nodded, studying the real-time updates from scout ships monitoring the Kang mobilization. The Empire was gathering a force 10 times larger than what they'd faced at Day Prime. Old warships pulled from retirement, newly commissioned vessels rushing through final preparations, and most concerning, heavily shielded transports carrying what could only be Section 7 weapons. "The Kang are making this easy for us," Park noted. "They're so eager for revenge, they're clustering their forces. Update all targeting solutions based on current deployments." A junior officer approached, with a secure communication tablet. "Admiral, message from Earth Command. The council meeting is proceeding as expected. Ambassador Li has implemented Protocol Sunlight." Protocol Sunlight, revealing just enough of humanity's capabilities and intentions to sow doubt and confusion among potential enemies while reassuring potential allies. Meanwhile, the real work would happen far from the council chambers. "Very good," Park replied. "Begin final countdown for Operation Thunderclap. All teams to assume strike positions within the next 12 hours. She turned to study the tactical display showing the human fleet dispersing into its specialized units. Unlike traditional military doctrine that prized concentrated force, Operation Thunderclap relied on simultaneous precision strikes across dozens of targets. Some teams carried advanced electronic warfare packages designed to disable rather than destroy. Others transported the newly developed Ghost drones, semi-autonomous combat units that could phase between dimensions, appearing inside secured facilities without triggering defense systems. Most important were the Sentinel teams, smaller, faster vessels equipped with the experimental shield technology that could neutralize Section 7 weapons before they deployed. These teams would take the greatest risks, positioning themselves directly in the path of the planet killers The Kang were almost certainly preparing to launch against Earth itself. "Commander Ryu, what's the status on the Kang's secret research facility in the Deneb system?" Park asked. Ryu's eyes flickered as she accessed the intelligence network. "Our infiltration units report the facility is operating at maximum capacity. Energy signatures suggest they're preparing to move the Stellar Hammer prototype." Park's expression darkened. The Stellar Hammer, a weapon designed to trigger artificial supernovas, exactly the kind of abomination Section 7 had been created. "To prevent, prioritize the Deneb facility for Team Delta," she ordered. "I want their best operatives on this. That prototype cannot leave the system." As the command center hummed with activity, Park stepped away to a private viewing port. Beyond the reinforced glass, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. For 3 centuries, humanity had rebuilt, united, and prepared for this moment, when they would step back onto the galactic stage, not as novices, but as protectors. The Kang Empire had never faced a species that evolved on a death world where competition and conflict had forged not just bodies, but minds designed to outthink predators. They had never encountered a civilization that turned its historical divisions into strength, creating military doctrine that drew from thousands of years of warfare against themselves. Most importantly, they had never fought an enemy that had spent centuries watching their every move, analyzing their tactics, and preparing specific countermeasures for each of their weapons. "They think they're hunting us," Park murmured to herself. "They don't realize they're walking into a trap 300 years in the making." Behind her, the countdown to Operation Thunderclap continued, marking the minutes until humanity would show the galaxy exactly why they had stayed hidden for so long. The void around the Day Home system blazed with the engines of 10,000 Kang warships. They came not as a fleet, but as an armada of vengeance, their hulls painted with kill markings and victory symbols from 17 conquered worlds. At their center, the massive dreadnought Inevitable Dominion cast a shadow longer than most moons, its weapons arrays glowing with barely contained energy. On its command deck, Warlord Kim surveyed the battlefield through enhanced visual feeds. Unlike Admiral Tay, who had underestimated the human threat, Kim had studied the footage of their previous encounter obsessively. His scaled face remained expressionless, but the rhythmic tapping of his clawed fingers betrayed his anticipation. "Scans. Detect no human vessels in system," reported his sensor officer. "The Day planetary shields are at maximum capacity, but they cannot withstand our numbers." Kim nodded slowly. "They're watching, waiting." He turned to his weapons commander. "Deploy the Devastators. Target their agricultural centers first. Throughout, the Armada special weapons bays opened to reveal devices that seemed to drink in the light around them. Planetary Devastators, weapons designed to crack a world's crust and render it uninhabitable. Their use had been banned by the Galactic Council after the horrors of Proxima, when an entire species had been erased in a single day. The Kang had officially agreed to the ban while secretly building an arsenal. As the Devastators powered up, the sensor officer suddenly straightened. "Warlord, spatial distortions forming at coordinates 227 Mark 148. Full power to forward shields," Kim ordered, but it was too late. Space rippled and tore at precise points throughout the Kang formation, not at the edges where reinforcements might arrive, but directly in their midst. Pockets of vacuum suddenly occupied by human warships that materialized with weapons already firing. The ambush had been laid not around the system, but inside the Kang fleet itself. From the Thermopylae, now positioned less than 1,000 kilometers from the Inevitable Dominion, Admiral Park directed the battle with cold precision. Gravity, well generators at full power. Electronic warfare packages deployed. Execute pattern Lambda. Specialized human vessels activated technology that had been theory when humanity retreated from galactic affairs centuries ago. Artificial gravity wells suddenly formed throughout the Kang formation, pulling ships into unplanned collisions or trapping them in place. Other human vessels unleashed invisible waves of nanoscopic machines that infiltrated Kang systems, turning their own weapons against them or simply shutting them down. Most terrifying were the phase ships, human vessels that seemed to flicker, in and out of normal space, becoming ghostly silhouettes before solidifying inside Kang defensive formations. When they rematerialized, they launched precision strikes against weapon systems and engines, neutralizing threats without destroying the vessels themselves. "They're not trying to kill us," realized Sub-Commander Jin, watching the battle from a secondary command vessel. "They're disabling our ships. But why?" On the inevitable Dominion, Warlord Kim watched in growing horror as his carefully planned assault collapsed into chaos. 3 centuries of Kang military dominance meant nothing against these tactics they had never encountered. His ships, designed to fight traditional battles with energy weapons and physical projectiles, had no defenses against enemies who could manipulate space itself. "Launch the Devastators now!" he roared, pounding his fist against the command console. Target the Day homeworld. The planetary Devastators detached from their carrier ships, accelerating toward Day Prime. Each one contained enough power to render half a continent uninhabitable for generations. If they couldn't defeat these humans, they would at least ensure there was nothing left to protect. Admiral Park had anticipated this move. "Intercept teams. Execute Protocol Guardian." From the chaos of battle emerged sleek black vessels smaller than fighters, but faster than anything the Kang had ever encountered. These interceptors streaked toward the Devastators, matching their course perfectly, before releasing clouds of microscopic particles that surrounded the weapons. The particles bonded together, forming containment fields that sealed the Devastators in pocket dimensions, bubbles of space-time separated from normal reality. Inside these bubbles, the weapons detonated harmlessly, their apocalyptic energy contained within spaces smaller than atoms. "Impossible," whispered the Kang weapons officer, watching their ultimate weapons vanish one by one. "No civilization has this level of technology." Kim's face had gone pale beneath his scales. "What are we fighting?" he demanded of no one in particular. The answer came from an unexpected source. Throughout the Kang fleet, communication systems activated simultaneously, overriding security protocols and command lockouts. On every screen appeared the face of a human woman, not Admiral Park, but a civilian with the bearing of a teacher or scholar. "I am Professor June from the Earth Historical Institute," she said calmly. "Since you've chosen to fight us, you should understand what you're facing." Holographic displays formed on Kang command decks, showing images of Earth, not the unified, advanced world they might have expected, but scenes from human history. Ancient battles with primitive weapons, modern wars with increasingly deadly technology, natural disasters that wiped out millions, plagues, famines, and catastrophes that would have ended most species. "Humans evolved on what you would classify as a death world," Professor June explained. "Our gravity is crushing by your standards. Our atmosphere contains oxygen levels toxic to most sentient species. Our planet experiences weather that can level cities. Our oceans are so vast and deep that we've explored less than 20% of them." The displays showed more images, predators that would give even Kang nightmares, microscopic organisms that had killed billions throughout human history, landscapes ranging from scorching deserts to frozen wastelands. "We survived all of this," she continued, "but our greatest threat was always ourselves. What you're experiencing now is the result of thousands of years of humans fighting humans, developing tactics, countering them, creating weapons, and finding defenses. We had nuclear weapons before we had space travel. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times before we united." On the inevitable Dominion, Warlord Kim watched a parade of human conflicts scroll across his screen, each more devastating than the last, each resulting in new technologies and tactics that evolved with terrifying speed. "When we encountered the galactic community, we realized we weren't ready," Professor June concluded. "Not because we were technologically backward, but because we recognized something you never understood. A species that learns to survive on a death world and its own self-destructive tendencies develops a unique perspective on warfare. We didn't retreat out of fear. We retreated to prepare, to ensure that when we finally took our place among the stars, we would never be victims." The transmission ended, leaving the Kang commanders staring at their displays in stunned silence. Around them, Their mighty armada lay largely disabled but not destroyed, a deliberate choice that suddenly seemed more terrifying than outright destruction. Warlord Kim looked out at the battle that was no longer a battle, but a systematic neutralization of his forces. The humans had learned to fight on a world that tried to kill them daily, against enemies who thought exactly as they did. They had turned their greatest weakness, their division and conflict, into their greatest strength. Against such a species, what chance did the Kang Empire really have? The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Admiral Park stepped onto the central platform. Unlike Ambassador Lee's previous appearance, this was not a diplomatic session, but a formal hearing on the Kang-human conflict. Representatives from over 100 worlds leaned forward in their gravity couches or hovering platforms, many seeing a human military leader in person for the first time. Park wore her formal uniform, midnight blue with silver trim, Earth's emblem displayed simply on her collar, rather than emblazoned across her chest as was common in Kang military fashion. She carried no weapons, yet many delegates found themselves instinctively shrinking back as she moved to the speaker's position. 3 days ago, she began without preamble, the Kang Empire launched what they believed would be a war of extermination against humanity and our protected allies, the Day. They deployed weapons banned under Section 7 of the Galactic Accord, including planetary devastators and chronodisruptors. She gestured, and holographic evidence materialized around the chamber. Kang ships launching the forbidden weapons, sensor readings confirming their nature, and footage of their neutralization by human interceptors. The Kang Armada has been neutralized, Park continued. Their leadership, including Warlord Kim, has been taken into custody. Their Section 7 weapons have been contained and will be dismantled under neutral observation. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Zidari, representatives' crystalline form pulsed with patterns indicating disbelief. For you expect us to believe a nascent military power defeated the largest fleet in 3 sectors with minimal casualties? I don't expect you to believe anything, Park replied coolly. The evidence has been provided. Verification teams from neutral worlds have confirmed our reports. The facts stand regardless of belief. High Counselor Vox's tentacles writhed with agitation. Admiral Park, while the Council acknowledges your intervention prevented the destruction of the Day civilization, we cannot condone unilateral military action on this scale. The Galactic Order, Park interrupted, has failed. Repeatedly and systematically, a new set of holograms appeared. Planets burning, species being herded into extinction camps, civilizations being methodically erased, while Council observation teams documented but did not intervene. 17 times in the past century alone, Park continued, her voice harder now. This Council has recorded the extinction or subjugation of an emerging civilization. Each time the aggressors faced sanctions, strongly worded condemnations, and eventually nothing. Business continues. Trade routes are re-established. The dead are forgotten. She stepped closer to the center of the platform, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. This ends today. Ambassador Lee joined her on the platform, carrying a data crystal that she inserted into the Council's central system. We are formally establishing what we call the Terra Protectorate, she announced. Any world or species facing existential threat may apply for protection. Those under our shield will be defended with the full capacity of Earth's military and technological resources. The chamber erupted in protest. The Praxi delegate, normally so measured, rose from his hovering platform. You cannot simply declare yourselves galactic peacekeepers. This council has protocols, procedures. Your procedures have failed 17 civilizations, Lee cut in. We're offering an alternative. From the back of the chamber came an unexpected voice. Elder Han of the Day stepped forward, his frail form supported by a human medical exoskeleton. My people were days from extinction when humanity answered. Our call, where was this council then? Debating procedure while our worlds burned. He moved slowly to the central platform, joining the human representatives. The Dai Alliance formally announces our entry into the Terra Protectorate as founding members. We offer our biotechnology and medical knowledge in exchange for continued protection. Other delegates began to rise, representatives from smaller worlds, from species that had long been bullied by larger powers, from civilizations that existed on the edges of galactic society. One by one, they voiced support for the Protectorate. The Tilani delegate, representing one of the oldest democracies in the galaxy, finally spoke. This council was formed to prevent exactly what humans now propose, a single power dictating terms to the galaxy. What guarantees do we have that the Protectorate won't become another empire? Admiral Park turned to face the ancient Tilani. None, she said simply, except our word and our actions. Judge us by what we do, not what we say. We have the power to conquer, we choose to protect. We have the technology to destroy, we choose to defend. She gestured to the holograms still displaying atrocities the Council had allowed. We've watched long enough to know the difference between words and deeds. In a secure facility orbiting Earth's moon, Warlord Kim sat in a comfortable but inescapable cell. The room was well appointed, more like guest quarters than a prison, but the view through the transparent wall showed the vacuum of space, a constant reminder of his situation. The door slid open to admit a human woman who carried no recording, devices, no visible weapons, just a small data tablet and what appeared to be 2 cups of steaming liquid. "I'm Professor June," she said, placing 1 cup before him. "The same historian who spoke to your fleet during the battle. I thought we might talk." Kim eyed the cup suspiciously. "Poison?" "Tea," she corrected. "An earth beverage, non-toxic to your physiology. We checked." The warlord's scales shifted in what might have been amusement. "You come to gloat? To extract intelligence? I'll tell you nothing useful." "I'm not here for military secrets," June replied, settling into the chair opposite him. "I'm a historian. I want to understand your perspective on what happened. How the mighty Kang Empire, conqueror of 17 worlds, failed to anticipate the rise of humanity." Kim studied her for a long moment before answering. "You hid. You watched. You learned our weaknesses while showing none of your own. It was dishonorable. Effective, though," June noted without malice, "and necessary. When humans first reached the stars and observed the galaxy, we saw patterns that alarmed us. Species after species being conquered or eliminated while the Council debated. We knew we could be next." "So you retreated like cowards," Kim sneered. "We retreated like strategists," she corrected. "We needed time to unite our planet, to advance our technology, to prepare defenses against threats we'd observed. Most importantly, we needed to understand the rules of galactic politics before we decided which ones to follow, and which ones needed to be broken." She sipped her tea calmly. "The Kang Empire will not be dismantled. Your people will not be punished collectively for the actions of their leadership, but the era of conquest is over." Kim's eyes narrowed. "You speak as if a single victory grants you control of the galaxy." "Not control," June said. "Protection. There's a difference that I hope you'll come to understand during your time with us." As she spoke, the facility's viewport cleared to show Earth hanging in space, blue and green and alive, home to a species that had evolved in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within minutes. "Your prisons can't hold me forever," Kim said, though his voice lacked conviction. Professor June smiled slightly. "This isn't a prison, Warlord Kim. It's a classroom. You're our first student in what we call cultural reorientation. You'll learn about Earth, about humanity, about why we believe protection is preferable to conquest. And when you understand, truly understand, you'll be free to return to your people and lead them into a new era." She rose to leave but paused at the door. "The galaxy is changing, Warlord. The strong will no longer prey on the weak while others watch. The rules that allowed 17 civilizations to die have been broken. A new order begins today." As she left, Kim turned to stare at the impossible planet hanging in space before him. The death world that had forged not just physically powerful beings, but a species with the patience to watch, learn, and strike only when victory was certain. For the first time in his military career, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt about the path his empire had chosen. Beyond Earth, across the galaxy, ships bearing the Terra Protectorate emblem moved into position around vulnerable worlds, their presence alone deterring would-be conquerors. The message spread from system to system. No one was supposed to come. Then humanity's war fleet entered the fight, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end.